Salida, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jim and welcome to the South German review for the new Noekk EP, Carol Stones and Elder Rock. Noekk is a progressive rock project that consists of Schwadorf, who you might know from The Vision Bleak or Empyreum or one of his many other projects, and opera singer Thomas Helm, who is also part of Empyreum. And to be honest, this is a release I can barely believe is even real. Noekk was a rather short-lived project that surfaced in 2004 and whose last sign of being active until now was their 2008 released album The Minstrel's Curse. It almost feels like Schwadorf is a big fan of these long breaks to then surprise the fans with a comeback, even though Thomas Helm is the head for this particular project. But Empyreum took a 7-year break, Son of the Sleepless has gone dark for over a decade, and the last release from Noekk has been 10 years in the past too. Anyways, with this announcement of this EP, it was also announced that a full album will follow. But at least judging by the PR text for this EP, none of the 4 tracks to be found on here will be part of the long player. So I will take a look at the EP now, and as per usual for an EP, I will go through it track by track. The EP starts off with the song A Loss, a 90-second long opening that is just a simple, wistful little piano melody and Helm's tender singing. One thing worth noting is that this vocal delivery is present on all of the tracks here. As an opera singer, Thomas Helm has an incredibly powerful voice, and Noekk had some quite pushing songs in the past, but this EP shows no signs of that. Helm sings carefully and tenderly on all of these 4 tracks. The second song is called Pan and brings some more instruments into the mix. You get a flute, some subdued drumming and what sounds like bass guitar here to start you off, with an acoustic guitar taking a backseat place. Especially the flute manages to create an almost ghostly atmosphere in the verses, while it gives way to the drums in the hook. Then, in the middle of the track, suddenly acoustic guitars take the lead. Spooky sounds, which I just presume come from a keyboard, sneak their way into the background, Helm's vocals echo more and more, and the intricate guitar play is just beautiful. You then get the hook one final time before the song ends on the same flute, bass guitar and drums combo it started on. The third song, A Vision, feels like a second interlude with its less than 2 minutes of playtime, but comes up with some very relaxing acoustic guitar play. You get some very soft scraping of the hi-hats, and I'm sure near the end we get a bit of a flute melody that is so much tuned into the background you can easily overhear it. This song really reminded me of old Empyreum material, thinking back to tracks like Abendrot or Fortgang. The fourth and final song is called Archaic Tune. Once again you get presented with acoustic guitars, a sneaky bass line in the background, some string-like sounds persisting in the background which I assume are from the keyboard that gets more heavily featured down the road in this song. The hook feels almost like a little crescendo where Helm lets his voice go a bit stronger, the drums are more present and all the instruments just pick up a little bit more power and speed. But after the first hook, this bubbly keyboard sets in out of nowhere, and it honestly took me a few times to listen to this track to get used to it. The artificial sound of it contrasts so hard with the organic rest that it can actually be a bit jarring at first. But once I got used to it, it gelled pretty well with the rest, I feel, reminding me a bit of the keyboard from their older track The Water Sprite, even though the keyboard there was contrasted to a metal soundscape. The track then picks up some speed with drums and acoustic guitars after a second hook, chorus-like vocals set in over time, before the song just stops it all for a quick little glockenspiel melody and then delivering another hook before ending on a more tender vocal delivery, acoustic and bass guitar notes again here too. Overall, this Noekk EP really surprised me, not only by its existence in itself, but also by the direction it took. I remember Noekk having this really heavy metal slant in their music in the past. There are some very dreamy tracks in their discography, like for example Moonface is that, but you could often find faster, harder drumming and electric guitars in their music, which now seems to have been exchanged for more folky influences with dominant acoustic guitars and generally a slower, calmer, almost serene kind of mystical atmosphere. Helm also didn't really show the power of his voice once on here, and he has proven time and again that his vocal cords carry a lot of strength. I mean, the guy doesn't sing in the Bavarian State Opera for nothing. And I did like all 4 tracks on this EP. The more folk-heavy, autumn-like atmosphere did remind me a bit of old Empyreum tracks as I mentioned before, but not so strongly that I could have mixed those two up. Noekk still has a very distinct own style that is still present on here, even though it feels quite different than before. I just hope for their upcoming album they branch out a bit more, because in comparison to their prior releases, this EP almost felt, well, boring would be too harsh a word, but surprisingly unsurprising, I guess, would be very fitting. Noekk has always been a quite progressive project that did some absolutely crazy stuff, which I felt was absent for the most part of this EP. That didn't make the music necessarily worse, but if you listen to older Noekk songs, you will find them very unpredictable at times. But of course, one can't forget that it has been quite a few years since their last release, and artists naturally change over time, which in return reflects on their output. Whatever the case may be, I would lie to say I didn't expect something very different here, but what we got with this EP was still quite enjoyable in my opinion. So, as a conclusion, if Carol Stones and Elder Rock is your first exposure to Noekk, you might get a bit of a wrong impression about their past outputs, but this is still a very solid EP, and if it's an accurate preview of what to expect from their next full album, I'm at least very curious. The tracks on this EP are rich in atmosphere and little details in their compositions, which you will probably not notice all on the first listening to it. I do hope the progressive elements will come back a bit more for the full album, but one way or another, I'm quite looking forward to it, and I enjoyed this EP for what it was, even though it wasn't what I expected. So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, leave a like for the video or just subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and want more reviews for bands and artists you have probably never heard of before. If you have listened to the album, let me know with a comment what you thought about it, and if you want to check it out now, you can find all the relevant links in the description below. You can also find my social media accounts linked there. If you want to check out some random music, I do post at least one music video per day there. Thank you very much for watching, I hope to see you again next time. Have a nice day, Salida.